guys, and welcome to the third Howlpod. I'm joined by Death's Wolf.
Hey guys.
And I'm Arashi Kanashimi, in case you've forgotten. So, today we're going to be talking about an issue which we are both very interested in, mostly because of Sword Art Online. And if you still haven't guessed it, that's virtual reality. So what we're basically looking at today is whether virtual reality is going to be something that will be used in the future. And by looking at the past of virtual reality and the present, we're going to try and come up with a decent answer of its possible uses for the future and whether it could actually be an option. So let's start in the past and take a look at some of the first virtual reality systems that people had. Deathwolf, do you have any systems or anything you'd like to mention?
Yes, Nintendo actually came out with the very first, quote-unquote, very first virtual reality system called the Virtual Boy. It only lasted a couple of months, though, as in Japan it came out in July of 1995 and was discontinued in December of 95. It was actually just set up on a table on a tripod. It just had black and red graphics, and you had another controller. Another disadvantage to it was the fact that if you were playing with it for too long, it would cause extreme nausea and or a headache. But if you look at it from a positive point of view, it was the first virtual reality system of that time. And it was actually retailed, I think, for about, I think it would be like 1,000 equal to today's currency, if that makes any sense at all.
Okay, one of the things I also found about the Virtual Boy, one of the complaints people had was that it had no motion tracking for your head, so you still had to kind of manually turn it, which was not that good. And I kind of found out that that time period had a massive virtual reality kind of wave of enthusiasm. I think it was in the 80s and 90s. And before that, even, you also had the first ever flight simulator getting made in 1966. And what I seem to kind of get an idea of is that although virtual reality was a failure from a consumer point of view back then, it was very successful in industry and stuff. Like people like NASA used it to control Mars rovers, and you have the flight simulators and all kinds of like simulation programs that started to get used.
Moving on to the present, the big thing right now is the Oculus Rift, which has an 80 frame per second tops frame rate, and it's supposed to represent reality as best as it can. It has a head tracking where if you move the Oculus Rift and your head, it actually turns the head of the character. The only drawback to this, though, is the fact that you have to use an outward source to move the actual body of the character, and you have to recenter the Oculus Rift at the same time, so it gets kind of confusing as it goes. Another drawback to the Oculus Rift is the tethers that it has, where you have to plug it in and everything, which is something they're working forward. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I have heard about how they're trying to make it wireless, and I think I may be wrong, but I think the mobile version is wireless. I think that's wrong. I don't know. But also on the Oculus Rift, I don't know if you know, but Sony is also coming out with their own virtual reality headset called Project Morpheus, which looks also pretty good. It's kind of a different vibe to the Oculus, where the Oculus has kind of more of a black kind of casing. Sony's gone for sort of a white and blue futuristic looking thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think there's been any word on the prices yet. I know the Oculus we're looking at about $300, round about there. But I don't know about Morpheus. And I was looking at some of the people's comments online, and like a few of the issues that I'm hoping the Oculus Rift does sort out. Some people have mentioned like weight issues, that no matter how light the Oculus Rift is, if it's like even a little bit heavy, if you're wearing it for like hours at a time, it's going to get like really sore and uncomfortable to wear. Um, and I guess that's something that people are gonna have to just find out for themselves as they buy it.
Another
Also,
thing for
yeah.
the present I've noticed is called the Virtuix Omni. which is basically it's a platform where you have to wear these special shoes, and it has sensors in it, and as you move on the platform, it actually moves your character as well, and it's got like a harness that comes with it,
Mm?
and it connects to it. As far as I know, this is only on pre-order as they're still working with it, but you can pre-order it for 1,109 US dollars, and that comes with 3 shoes, 2 harnesses, 2 platforms, and the software and hardware to use it actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. I saw a few videos of different like very basic rigs they'd set up to sort of enhance the Oculus Rift. So like they had a horse riding thing and the seat would just like move back and forth, that kind of thing. But nothing as intense as that. I think the main concern at the moment is that people are scared that it's just going to be a gimmick. You know, like when the Wii came out, everyone was super hyped for it. And I know I was pretty small at the time, and I thought, oh my gosh, finally I'm going to be able to like sit in front of a screen and like swing a sword, like, you know, being the Wii remote, and actually be
Yeah.
able to move the sword in a game. And they never got to that point where it was like individual movements, or at least I've never played a game like that. Instead, it was just like spamming, shaking the remote, which was a complete letdown for me. And I kind of got bored of the Wii very quickly.
The only thing, speaking of the Wii, that the only game that I've played for it that had the individual movements would be Wii Boxing on Wii Sports, which is a game that actually came with it, it and you just move the Wii nunchuck controller and the Wii remote, and you just move it, and all it does is it represents your hands, and like depending on how you swing it, yeah, it does a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, I've
But
also
that's really
played
the only
that.
game I've seen with it.
Yeah, I played that and I found that quite buggy. Like a lot of the time I would swing and nothing would happen. So I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical about the Wii still. But I think one good thing that's happened because of, you know, like how virtual reality kind of died in the 80s and 90s is that it gave a chance for like computers to catch up. So, you know, if it had somehow succeeded in the 90s, you still would have been dealing with really bad graphics. But now graphics are getting to a level where it kind of almost, you could maybe pretend that it's real life, but and maybe even occasionally mistake it for real life. But you know, back in the day, that wasn't possible.
Moving on to the future, there was one I was looking at called the GameFace from GameFace Labs. It's something that's being backed mostly by Android, and a few others are Sony and crud. I can't remember the others, but it has a very good display, very fast graphics, and it's basically a computer integrated into a virtual reality helmet. It's not really a helmet; it's more like an Oculus Rift thing, but it's a little thicker, and it's mobile. It's no wires at all, and it can actually be, I think it's Bluetooth connected to your Android device, and it can display everything that's on your Android device around you
Wow.
using this mask, and it's supposed to be like the next big thing in virtual reality. And as far as I know, it's got this thing in it called an SoC, which is a system on chip,
Mm.
which basically puts an entire computer into a chip that you put into something that's about like a couple a couple centimeters by a couple centimeters.
Wow. Yeah, on that note, I also found something absolutely, well, I thought it was absolutely amazing. So there's this thing called Project Nourished. So basically what it does is it uses the Oculus Rift cutlery with sensors on it, and it's made up like low calorie food and kind of like different smells to simulate like eating different foods. And so like you eat this like low calorie food, and it tastes like sushi or steak or lasagna, and the other one is pie, I think. And like that way you can eat basically whatever you want and you can still like maintain your weight. So that's great for someone who maybe struggles with binge eating, something like that.
Ah,
Yeah. It's probably not going to really be incorporated into our lives in the future, but like, you know, if someone has a medical condition or something like that, or if they just want to enjoy food, then that's a great way to do that without, becoming obese. And I think that, obesity is becoming a health problem more and more. So I think that's a really great idea that people are doing now.
My note on that, this is probably just my sci-fi paranoia kicking in, but personally, I wouldn't want something like that because, as you said, it's running on technology. And if we're being able to modify sensors to make certain things taste like other stuff, yeah, I think that can escalate very quickly. And if we're able to do that, we can modify, like, eventually, from what I've been seeing, virtual reality helmets are getting smaller, and eventually we might be able to actually make, like, contact lenses and things that can actually project it as well. With a small, like, as I was saying, this SoC, the system on chip, is very small. And with as small as that is, imagine if we can make it even smaller and put it into a contact lens that makes it's just virtual reality contact lenses.
That'd be insane.
So, but yeah, like I said, I think that's just my sci-fi paranoia kicking in.
Yeah, I would be skeptical of anything that's, I think, for me, that kind of like the food eating thing, it's okay. I don't think it's like near enough the point where they could do that yet for me to be worried, but I do get what you're saying. And like it's not that far a step to people getting like false virtual reality images and getting manipulated into doing stuff, that kind of
Another
thing.
thing too, if we're able to manipulate taste buds, um, I was watching SAO, not sponsored by Funimation, um, and anybody else that worked on SAO, I can't remember everybody. I was watching it, SAO2, and they have this thing called a metacuboid,
Oh yes,
which
yes.
allows full dive into the game. As they were saying, it's like as they're doing surgery, as they're doing things to the patient, they're actually in a video game, and it's very slight, but they can still feel things as they have not had the actual full dive. In retrospect, the time that SAO was placed in isn't that far off. And with as fast as virtual reality is coming in, I think that the metacuboids could actually become a reality eventually, if not sometime in the near future.
Yeah, I think the big barrier there is that we really don't know that much about brains yet. I mean, people are starting to get like basic emotion brainwaves and that kind of thing, but it's going to be a while before we can actually do something like inside a person's head. At least I think so. I'm not a doctor, so who knows. But yeah, I did also I saw a very cute video about how someone wrote to the Oculus Rift company. I think it's called Oculus VR, so yeah, same thing. Um, and they asked for an Oculus Rift so that they could use it with their grandmother who had cancer and she was stuck in the house. Like moving around was too painful for her, and she just really wanted to travel and get out of the house. And so they gave them an Oculus Rift to use, and that's what they did. And they kind of did like therapy by putting her in this virtual environment. And I think that's one of the big positive aspects of the Oculus Rift.
That actually sounds really neat. And another thing too with the GameFace, it's Bluetooth, so you could basically go anywhere. Like if this is me thinking about money saving. Like if you wanted to go on a vacation, but you only had like enough plane ticket for one, you could link. Well, Bluetooth can't reach that far, but theoretically,
Yeah,
if you only had like enough money for a plane ticket for one person, you could have like a camera attached to your shoulder or to like your glasses or something, and you could have the game face connected to that, and you could have it projecting through.
that kind of reminds me of the Farad Experiment. Who knows if I said that right? But basically, there's this artist who is, I don't know if he's done it or if he's still planning. The article I read was quite a while back, but they didn't have anything more on it, so I don't really know. But he basically used a VR headset, and then that was linked to another person, like going about their daily lives. So like he spent all of his time in that headset, and he kind of became this other person, or at least that was the plan. And he just watched this person's life like 24/7 for a month. I think he was doing it for. And that's kind of similar, where like you are traveling with another person, really. But
not stalkerish at all.
yeah, not at all. No.
No, watching a person their complete life for a full month isn't stalkerish at all.
Maybe they were like best friends or something. Who knows? Probably not. Actually, I'd rather do it with a complete stranger than a best friend.
Yeah.
That sounds so dodgy. Moving on. Okay.
But
So,
as I was saying,
yeah.
with how things are going, I personally think that virtual reality is going to become a very big aspect and eventually can be used for other things other than gaming, such as when the Virtual Boy was used, or not the Virtual Boy, yeah, the Virtual Boy was used for industrialized and not, or industrial things and not just gaming.
Yeah. Um, and I think also, stuff like surgeons doing virtual operations and pilots practicing and soldiers getting like combat experience in a virtual environment. All of that is going to be stuff that's going to become more and more common. Um,
Mhm.
and also, I mean, for the classroom, imagine if instead of learning about Russia sitting at your desk, you can go to like the Russian Revolution and spend like an hour just like watching the historical figures like act out, what happened.
That was another thing too. There's a new, this is like completely not virtual reality, but it goes along with that line. There's this new thing coming out called the SearchLip Bracelet, and it's basically a smartphone on your wrist, and it uses projection technology off the wristband, and it gets projected onto your arm, and using like I think it's like infrared lasers or something. It can sense where your finger touches to where it represents it like a smartphone touchscreen.
Oh, wow. So, have you heard of the game Second Life?
Yes, I have actually.
So, now imagine that in a virtual reality game. Big problem there is that, people are already so obsessed with it. I mean, you had some guy marrying a character from a dating sim a while back. I think it was a dating
Mm.
sim. He marries someone from a video game. Obviously not legally binding, but still. And like, I think a lot of people are scared that if it's so immersive, there's going to be more and more of that happening where people kind of lose touch with reality and start just completely staying in a virtual world.
Well, it's better to be in a virtual world where you can do anything than being in a world that's raged with war and disease and something wanting to hurt you around every other corner. So I'm like, I'm not saying I'm gonna go and run off into a virtual reality and not come back, but that's just how I would look at it from their perspective because there are people who more than likely will, if not are, already doing that. But like that's what I would say is it's better to be in those worlds than in this world.
Yeah. I think though, I think it does raise health concerns because, if you're spending all your time in that world, you're going to start having some sort of like either just a fitness problem or something more serious. I know if you're like lying down or sitting for long periods of time, you can get an aneurysm or clot or something. So from that
Your
point of
bones can
view,
start to break down from no, or your muscles and bones can start to break down.
oh yeah, that's nice.
Have you seen Wally? That's what happened to them.
Yep, I've seen Wally. I saw Wally like horrendously late in my childhood. Like I think I was 15. So
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's bad.
yeah. My brother
Um,
loved it. It was like his favorite movie ever, and he was like, hang on, if I was 15, he was 19 at the time. So
some people just never grow up.
I'm never going to grow up. I still just like watch cartoons. I'm like, yay, cartoons.
That's fine with SpongeBob. And people say they don't like SpongeBob. I'm like, why you don't like SpongeBob?
My dad walks in. He's like, you're watching SpongeBob. I'm like, yeah. What's wrong with that?
Virtual reality to SpongeBob. Wow, this took a turn for the worst.
Yeah. Well, I figured let's talk a little bit off topic for a little bit because, hey, I don't know. I don't know.
Alright.
It can always get edited out if it's inappropriate. So, viewers, do you prefer this kind of off-topic rambling, or would you rather have us stay on topic the whole time? Let us know in the comments if you comment. We're waiting for our first comment still, just saying. I'm not milking this. Why would I milk it? That would be wrong.
Yeah, it would, especially since it was like your idea.
Yeah. I think let's bring it to a close. I think basically with all of these kind of potential uses, I don't think virtual reality is just a gimmick. Um, and I think it's definitely going to be used, whether it's, becomes a gamer thing or not, it's still going to be used for like therapy and for like all the simulation kind of training stuff. Um, and so I think it is definitely here to stay once those headsets come out, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing it develop and get more advanced and cheaper, hopefully, for all of our pockets' sakes. But yeah, so I think that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. I'll leave a
Or all
link.
three.
All three, yeah, good, jolly good. And I'll leave a link to Death Wolf's channel in the description, so you can go check that out when you want. So bye, guys.
Bye, guys.